What's up everybody, Super fan here for another car review. This is of course the 2017 Fiat 124 Spider Lusso. Huge thanks to Fiat for providing me with this very nice 124 here to review for you guys today. So about the 124, well, I really love these things. I think they're so cool. Obviously based on the Miata, but they've been lengthened a little bit here for the Fiat version. As you can see, completely new sheet metal, so that, it looks completely different than a Miata. So you have some extra length there on the nose and there on the rear deck as well. And so it, makes it a little bit more slender looking, a little more elegant to me, a little less stubby. It's clear that they definitely drew a lot of inspiration from the car that was launched in the 60s and was built all the way through into the 80s. And there's just the round, retro kind of headlamps there you have up front. These are the standard headlamps. There is also an upgraded like xenon headlamp that also has some really cool LED daytime running lights, but this one has the standard headlights, which also look good. Both look great. And I love, these little power domes here you have on the hood. And overall, it's just, I love the wheels. I love how on the side there it has this body line that kicks up towards the rear, and it's just a really cool looking thing. And in the back there you have some taillights that kind of remind you of something like a Maserati or something like that. Body colored inserts there in the taillights as well, which is a unique and cool feature. And you have a little deck lid spoiler built into the trunk lid there. And overall though, I think this is actually just a really cool looking little roadster. Right, so the interior of the Fiat 124 Spider, well, it's really cool. I mean, heavily borrowed from the Miata, but it has some nice little differences here that I think make it look a lot nicer. But anyway, first things first, sitting down in these seats, very nice leather seats you get here in the Lusso. I like how they kind of have some indentations here to give them a little bit more of a sporty and retro kind of feel. And they're actually really comfortable seats. The back part of the seat though is a little bit on the small side, and the bolstering is a little bit wide. They could be a little bit better, and there also isn't really much lumbar support, so that would be nice to have a little bit more support there. And there is no adjustable lumbar, so it's just kind of you're stuck with whatever. So that would be nice to have some adjustable lumbar, because it is lacking there in the middle part of the back. But otherwise, like I said, they're very soft, comfortable, and really nice seats. Next is the steering wheel in the Fiat, which is different here from the Miata. This is a little bit of a beefier, thicker wheel than the Miata has, not by a lot, but it is a little bit thicker, and actually I think feels a lot better to use than the Miata wheel. Not that the Miata was bad, but this just has a little more of a substantial feel to it. Just a really perfect 9.3 grip, nice 10 and 2 notches, and just really the perfect thickness for a wheel in a little roadster like this. It's just really just a perfect wheel. I love the metal accents you have here on it. Just a few buttons, nothing overwhelming, and just a superb wheel. Next is the gauges in the 124 Spider, which are really great. Once again, you have a tachometer front and center with your gear indicator light there as well. On the automatic here, of course, it'll just tell you what gear you're in. Unless you're in manual mode, then it'll tell you the actual gear. Otherwise, it's just park, reverse, neutral, drive. Otherwise, though, you just have a speedometer, goes up to 150. I love the font for these gauges too. They're very sporty and aggressive. And on the left-hand side there, you have a little digital portion, very crude, non-color display, but it just gives you your basic information. For something like this, that's all you really need, and so nice to have that too. Coming over to the center of the dashboard here, this is where you do see a lot more Miata influence. It's exactly like a Miata, honestly. So up top here, you have the Mazda head unit here, which I really love. I don't really have too much experience with this because I never drive Mazdas, unfortunately, but it's a really nice head unit here. It's touchscreen and a very high resolution. I love the graphics and everything look great. You also do have a knob down here to control it as well, so you have the choice to do whatever you like to do. If you're more into the European style here and you like using a knob, you can go for that. Otherwise, it's all touchscreen within easy reach, and like I said, all the menus and everything look really nice. All just the basics, nothing crazy here, but it's still nice to have that. If you were to get the base trim, you do have a smaller little one color display instead, but this screen is really nice. It's the ideal size, so it doesn't get in the way whenever you're looking down the hood. but it's just really nice and helps to make this interior feel a little bit more expensive. Speaking about material qualities though, I have to say though that there are some hard plastics, but overall all the things that you touch are nice and soft. Like the door here has a nice soft elbow pad, and then you also have another nice soft elbow rest here on the right hand side too. But other nice materials here, you have the nice metal knobs here, or at least metal feeling knobs for the climate controls. They all have a very nice resistance, again very identical to the Mazdas, but nice nonetheless. You have push button start, and then you have your heated seat controls down here, and then you have this little storage space. Speaking of storage spaces though, there's not a whole lot in this car, but there are a few. Like I said, you first have this one here in the center that is very deep and goes far back, so you can fit, you know, just standard size smartphone in there without a problem. You also have 2 USB jacks and an auxiliary jack there, so very nicely done there. As far as other storage space, you don't have anything in the doors here. You know, it's just basic hard plastic. That's one difference with the Miata. You know, this part is body colored. On here it's just plastic, but that's okay. I think it still looks good nonetheless. Coming over to the center here though, another storage spot you have here is under this center armrest. It's very small, and you know, would even have trouble fitting a smartphone, but you know, fine for packs of gum, little tiny knickknacks like that. But nice to have that nonetheless. And coming back here, you have 2 cup holders, which aren't the best. They're kind of shallow and don't hold your drinks in very well, especially if they're larger drinks. But nice to have cup holders nonetheless. That's an upgrade from the, you know, Miatas of old and whatnot. And so good to have those there. And they're nicely out of the way too, so if you were with a manual here, you wouldn't be elbowing your drinks constantly. So that's nice. And then this car doesn't have a glove box. Instead though, you do have this little additional compartment here in the rear bulkhead. And so you open this up here, and it's nice and deep. You got a large storage space that goes way far back there. And then you know, you also have a little spot to store your owner's manual here, and overall just a very nice large additional space there. While we're back in this area though, putting the top up and down is extremely easy. There's just a lever here, and you just grab it and it pops up a little bit, and then you just grab the rest of it here and make sure the latch is lined up, and that's it. It's that simple. And then same thing, you just literally toss it, boom. It's really the perfect setup for a convertible. Very simple, easy to use, not heavy or anything, and so very well thought out there. Trunk space in the 124 Spider is a little bit larger than the Miata. That's one of the perks here of having a little bit of a longer back end. And so yeah, you have, it's not a huge difference, but it is a slightly larger trunk than the Miata, and it's a pretty good space honestly for a little roadster like this. I think you could fit, you know, probably 2 small suitcases or 2 large duffel bags easily back there. And so I mean, plenty of storage space for 2 people for a weekend or even a short, you know, week kind of trip. And so yeah, a really well done trunk I think too. Alright, so start and go for a drive. The Fiat here has a little nice key fob, I think very similar to the Mazda key fob, and it's a, like I said, keyless entry, push button start. So you just leave the key in your pocket, hit the engine start button, and it starts right up. Alright, so setting off in the 2017 Fiat 124 Spider. So first thing you notice driving this car is the hood is a good amount longer here thanks to the styling changes over the Miata. So visibility forward is a little more tricky than it is in a Miata. Just a longer hood to look out over and kind of judge whenever you're parking and whatnot. Otherwise though, excellent visibility here, of course, with the top down. It's just great, this open air experience. I just love it. I love little convertibles, and it just, you know, I like how this stops fairly early so you can get a very good open air kind of experience. Other things you notice when you first start driving the 124 Spider, at least here the automatic version, the throttle response is very sharp and eager. So the second you press the gas, it really wants to go, which makes it a little more playful and fun. But let's turn down onto this back road here and see how it does. We just have it in drive, and let's go. So it's a little 1.4 liter 4-cylinder turbocharged engine, and it does 160 horsepower and 184 pound-feet of torque, which is enough to get this car up and going 0 to 60 times around 6 seconds. Because it's so light, you don't really need a ton of power to get it moving. And so yeah, it's a good amount of power. I think the automatic definitely kind of slows it down off the line there a little bit, but it is fairly eager to kick down, and man, it really likes to rip up in those upper RPMs too. You know, it has good punch down low here with the turbo, but then And that upper RPM, it really likes to pull hard too. Other things to note though, while you're just cruising down the road here, is that, you know, even at average speeds here, 45 miles an hour, it's actually fairly quiet in here. You know, I don't have to be shouting in order to, you know, talk to you guys here on camera. You know, the wind noise is pretty subdued and pretty refined for a little car and a car in this price range. All right, so coming up to some corners here, let's see how the 124 Spider handles. So, you know, we're dealing with about 100 pounds more than a Miata. The roads are a tiny bit wet, so I'm not going to be pushing it too much here. But it's just, it doesn't really need to be pushed because, wow, this thing is just so lightweight feeling that it's so tossable. It just dives right into corners. A little bit of squirm under braking. I think that's partially because it's a little wet here. But yeah, I mean, pretty good handling. I gotta say, I love how this thing feels. It's not quite as light feeling as a Miata, I don't think, but it's not far off. And yeah, 100 pounds doesn't make that much of a difference. But I like it though. It feels a little more substantial, and I think it feels a little more buttoned down in corners than the Miata for sure. The Miata definitely has a lot more body roll and sway, and this is the Lusso trim of the, you know, Fiat here, but it's still, you know, even the more luxurious trim, I think still has less body roll than the Miata. So, you know, if that's something you don't like, then I think this will be right up your alley. Another little acceleration there. Going into another corner. Okay, so this, you know, the more that I push it now this part of the road is dry, and I thought it was just because it was wet, but this car actually just likes to squirm a little bit, and it's a little bit tail happy, especially whenever you're like trail braking and whatnot. It's pretty fun. It still does feel very small too going down the road, so that it's great for back roads. Tiny little back roads like this, it still feels right at home, just like the Miata. But yeah, I mean, one other thing though I will comment on is the steering feels a little looser, and it feels like you need to turn the wheel a little bit more in order to go in the direction that you want. Another thing to note about the 124 is because we don't have paddle shifters, the only way to manually shift this automatic here is by slapping the stick over and then just, you know, going through the gears yourself. And I mean, it's responsive, but it's not snappy or quick. It's just a 6-speed automatic, you know, one of the old school ones here, so nothing revolutionary. I mean, it's not bad, but, you know, it's definitely old school feeling. It still just feels a little lazy, but it's not terrible. And if you want this car just to cruise around, and this is, you know, really the perfect choice. But if you are, you know, gonna have sporting intentions with your 124, I think the manual is still probably the best way to go. Also, not a whole lot of sound here in the 124. It's got a little bit of a growl to it. It keeps wanting to get that back end down. Yeah, this stability control system keeps intervening because it just keeps wanting to step out. Not what I was expecting at all for this thing, 160 horsepower. But it's really fun though at low speeds. It kind of has that Miata magic still of, you know, low speed fun without the body roll, but it still has that fun where instead of, you know, the thing just swaying all over the place, instead you have the tires that just keep losing traction here a little bit. But yeah, getting back to the whole sound thing, it's not really super pleasurable. I think, you know, the Abarth version should be a lot better in that regard, and, you know, turn up the volume a little bit more and make it a little more raspy, like how, you know, these Fiats should sound, really, considering the engine it has straight out of the 500 Abarth. But yeah, so I think it could definitely benefit from some kind of exhaust to kind of open it up and make it a little more dramatic, because with the exhaust being muted, it kind of mutes the experience of the 124 just a little bit, and I think that would really help to liven it up. But yeah, this power steering in the 124 is just a little odd. It's a little numb and a little imprecise. It feels a tiny bit off. I mean, it still feels pretty good. I love using this nice beefy steering wheel. It feels great. A little bit thicker than the Miatas. But yeah, the steering feel, the weight is good as well, I will say. It just loads up slightly odd, and like I said, just a little odd feeling. But yeah, so thanks to Fiat, I have this 124 Spider for an entire week, so I'm going to drive around all week, all over the place, and I'll come back and give you my final fuel economy, as well as all my final thoughts here on the 124 Spider. Alright, Alright, so I've been driving the 2017 Fiat 124 Spider Lusso here for a week now, and it's really grown on me a lot. I really enjoy it. It's just the small size and the tossability of it. It just really makes for a fun little thing to run around in. I wouldn't necessarily consider this the top choice for a backroads carver or even something to drive spiritedly in all the time. I think it's just a nice little cruiser for someone that wants, something fun and small. You can just, flip the top down and, just enjoy the outdoors, honestly, because that's really, I think, the Lusso's strong suit. I think that's what this is the luxury one, the softer one. That's kind of what it's going for here, especially with the automatic and stuff like that. One thing that isn't so great about this convertible top that I was actually really surprised is that here during the week that I had it, there was about 2 days where it rained constantly, so 48 hours straight of rain, and this was parked outside. And I came and sat down in the car, and I noticed that there was a slight little bit of water collecting around the rearview mirror here, the visor, I guess I should say. And it was tiny. It was just a tiny little bit of water, but I was like, this is a brand new car that's already leaking a tiny bit from its roof in that one instance. Now, and there was other times where it rained over the course of this past week, and it didn't leak. So it might have just been a freak thing. Maybe I didn't have it latched 100% perfectly right or something, although I double checked it to make sure, and it seemed like it was all good and in the right position and whatnot. But just a surprising little thing that, I don't know, could have been a fluke, I don't know, but interesting nonetheless. A couple other things that weren't perfect during the week that I had. One is that as I'm applying the brakes here, the brakes in the 124, at least this one, are pretty mushy feeling. There's a lot of travel before you start getting any brake action, and they just aren't the most confidence-inspiring brakes. Thankfully, though, there is the Abarth version, which has, Brembos as an option. I would definitely recommend those if you like leaning on the brakes at all whenever you're doing any kind of driving. I mean, these are fine for, driving around town with and stuff, but if I was really hammering on brakes on a back road, I think I'd want the Brembos myself. So that's one thing to note. Another thing is this automatic, again, kind of, I think, sucks a little bit of the fun out of the Fiat because in addition to just not being able to shift yourself, the automatic has taller gearing than the manual. So I think the shorter gears in the manual would make it a little bit more sprightly as far as acceleration, make it a little more peppy feeling, even if it isn't, any more powerful or faster. It would feel a little faster, I think, than this automatic does. And so I think that's one thing that, again, don't go for the automatic unless you definitely just want a cruiser and that's it. But if you have any kind of sporting intentions with your Fiat, go for the manual, and I think you'll be happy you did. One other thing to mention, actually, I guess two things, is in regards to the engine. Now, this engine is a nice engine as far as the power, delivery, and stuff. It's pretty good, but it isn't perfect. And the reason why I say that is this is the first car I've driven in a while that actually has turbo lag. Not a low boost threshold, but I'm actually on the turbo, on boost, in the right RPM range, and I'm waiting, and I feel the turbo spooling up and propelling me forward at a quicker rate. So it actually has turbo lag, and it's kind of surprising, I mean, it's a small engine here. We're dealing with, 1.4 liters, and so it's got, I guess, a fairly large turbo for that size, but still, just kind of surprising that it's, got that much lag. But it is nice, I will say, whenever you're on the highway, trying to pass people and stuff. It has really good passing power that I think is definitely an improvement over stuff like the Miata, which wouldn't have that much torque. The last two things I want to mention are fuel economy and price here in the 124 Spider. During the week of driving, I've put about 140 miles on it here so far, and I've gotten 22.3 miles per gallon, which now my driving was primarily city as usual here in my reviews, but this car is rated at 25 in the city and 36 on the highway for a combined average of 29. So well beneath those numbers, but again, I was driving it pretty hard here because it doesn't have a ton of power. So this is the type of car you want to redline a lot. You want to really get on it and stuff whenever you're going from stoplight to stoplight and things like that. So I think still, given all that, 22 isn't too bad. And I'm sure, if I were to drive a little more highway, do a little bit of a better mix, then I would probably get, a lot better of a fuel economy number. So these retail for, this is the Lusso, and this one has the safety and security kind of package on it. So this one with the automatic and everything is right around 31,000 bucks. And so, you know, I mean, you can get one of these like Classico with the cloth seats, manual transmission for I think like $26,000, and you know, at around that price, it's even more of a good deal. But even at 31, I still think, you know, where else are you going to get a nice, you know, interior little roadster? I mean, there's really nothing in this price segment. Everything else is muscle cars or a Beetle. So I mean, you really don't have a whole lot of options here, and so I think this is really great. You know, aside from the Miata, and you know, it's right around the same price as the Miata. So really, as far as those two go, it depends on, you know, what kind of suspension tuning you like and what kind of exterior and interior styling you like. I mean, and that's really it as far as the differences between the two. So, you know, and of course the engine is different in them, and that again just goes down to just test driving both and seeing which you prefer. But yeah, so I mean, I think it's a pretty good value, and I mean, you can get the Abarth version, which is the thing, I think that's the one that all the enthusiasts should go for, because, you know, it has the stiffer suspension tuning, the additional little bit of power. You have the option to get the Brembo brakes, which like I said, I recommend, and you know, it's a little more aggressive looking as well. So it's just a win-win all around, honestly, with the Abarth. And it's really, I mean, compared to a Lusso, I think it's like an extra $1,000 or something, so well worth the additional little bit of money there. And I think the Abarth is definitely the one to get, I think, out of this, because it has enough power to have fun, and I think the Lusso is just a little soft, and I think that all that stuff would be fixed with the Abarth. So I'm hoping to drive an Abarth version eventually, and you know, give you guys all my thoughts on that, and see if that improves all the things that I think need improving here in the 124. But otherwise, like I said, it's a fantastic little thing to run around in, really fun little thing to toss around on a back road, very nice and lightweight and fun feeling. And so yeah, huge thanks to Fiat once again for sending me one of these to review for you guys. Let me know your thoughts on the 124 Spider here, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.